Welcome to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast with your host, legendary powerlifter and strength athlete, Chad Ikes. For most, the journey of strength starts in the gym, but should inevitably expand through all aspects of life. Join us as we discuss all things strength. Now, here's your host, Chad Ikes.
Today, we have another great guest. We have William Charters, who has kind of a very interesting background. And so I'm just gonna hand that over to him and let him talk about his background a little bit and how he got into fitness and training folks and all that stuff.
Thanks, Chad. So I was born in the southwest of England, in a city called Exeter in a county, Devon. So it's maybe like your Midwest over in America.
Okay.
So very sort of like rolling countryside. Everyone was physically active. There was no such thing as being unhealthy. Growing up, everyone was some sort of athlete just by default. Just how we sort of grew up in high school. No one was ever sat still, you know? We were always playing hide and seek or climbing trees or playing soccer or rugby or something. Everyone rode bikes to get places. So just everyone at a natural level was just very physically fit. There was no sort of excessive eating or anything like that. We were just all I don't know, we couldn't sit still.
Right.
So I was a competitive swimmer at first, and then I got onto the track and started competing in track. So I was running the 3,000 meters. That was my distance. And then eventually, as I started to put on a little bit more size, under the guise of my father, who was my coach for all of this, I dropped down to 400 meters. But then I had a kind of a unique series of things. I guess I was a good swimmer, I was a good runner, and I was also fairly strong with my lift. So I could get paid to sort of do all that as a living by becoming a Wolverine Commando, which was like the highest level soldier that you could join. So I jumped into that at the age of 16. I joined.
Wow,
and
that's young.
Yeah. I mean, like there was a very specific day. I remember I was 9 years old, and it was typical in England after Sunday. You'd have like the Thanksgiving meal here in America.
Yeah.
Like we have that every Sunday in England. We call it a Sunday roast, and you kind of sit around with the family, and then you have your big lunch, and then in the afternoon you always go for a long walk in like the country lanes. I don't know if you've ever seen them. It's just like spaghetti. It's just like roads that are they're single roads, and it's for two ways of traffic. It's kind of crazy, but it's very hilly and undulating. I mean, you'd always just go walking. And I remember one day I was out with my old man, and he'll be a good subject to talk about as this goes on. But we were walking, and this guy come running by, covered in mud, big heavy backpack on, holding a weapon. And my dad sort of pushed me back into the hedge and just sort of clapped him on and said, "Keep going, mate. It's about another 8 miles that way." I remember looking at my dad and thinking, like, what on earth what is this? And he saw my eyes light up, and he's like, "Oh, wow, okay. You were taken back by that." He goes, "Well, these are the sort of the highest of what we have here in the UK. These are the Wolverine Commandos." And he was thrown out the back of a helicopter, and he was told he had X amount of time to get that way. And I was so taken back, and I was like obsessed at that point. And my dad, it was just a big deal. He actually took the morning off work to take me into where they recruit these guys. So this is like Monday morning. And he took me in, and there was this big tall guy called Merv with a big mustache. And I was 9 years old. Again, my dad took me in and said, I've got a man for you here. He wants to be like one of you guys. And this guy shot up right, and he looked at me and he went, "Show me your arm." And I went like this, and he went, He looked at my dad and said, "A few more pies, please, Dad," because I was so super skinny. And he's like, "How many push-ups can you do?" And I dropped down and just started doing push-ups. He's like, "What about sit-ups?" And I started doing sit-ups. And you see that bar up there? Can you get up there and start doing pull-ups? I couldn't reach it, so I had to climb up the sort of side of this thing, shimmy along, and I just started doing pull-ups. He said, "You know where the post office is?" And I went, "Yeah." He went, "Off you go." And then he hit his watch, and I ran to the post office and back. And he went, "All right, we might better do something with you. So why don't you come back in a year?" And then after I came back, I did go back a year. And then this went on. He said, "Come back next year and next year." And then this went on all the way up until I was like 15. And
That's
then
really awesome.
Yeah, amazing. And then during that time, I joined, like they had like cadets, like Wolverine cadets. So that was a really profound part as well, because you got to play soldiers and I got to be around, and it was almost like a filtration system. Like a lot of guys actually who were in that did end up joining and going through the training, which was really, really cool. So that's kind of how that happened. And then my plan was to actually join as an officer. I did all right at school, but my parents split when I was 15, and then life at home was just kind of, it wasn't nice. So I didn't really have much going for me at home. So I was, my mother actually disowned me at 16, sorry. My dad was off just trying to survive at the time because my mother wasn't very nice to him. So luckily I had a job at Pizza Hut at the time, and I had a gym membership, and I was studying what they call your A-levels in college. So I had everything I needed to sort of survive. So I could pay for my food. I had a gym membership. My training schedule was insane. The things that I was doing at 16 were just phenomenal. And I went to see Merv, that guy who I met at 9 years old, and I explained my family situation. He said, "All right, let's get you in the sort of rotation. Let's get you through the selection process." And then I did that, and I scored well enough to get into the original 60 that start this particular training. And this was July 25th, 2005 was day one. And then I passed that course in April, I think it was April 6th, 2006.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like my catapult into this world. And that was an amazing, that's what you get your Green Beret at that point. And you get given that after this test, your 30-mile, the final test of that commando training is a 30-mile run. And upon you get through to the other side, they give you a Green Beret and you get a handshake, and then you're in the sort of club.
That's interesting. So how long did you stay in with that?
So I stayed, so I was 17 when I passed, and then I joined my unit, which was 40 Commando. There's 3 units, they call them your commando units, and they were named 40, 42, and 45. These were your commando units. And 40 was down south. It was based in Somerset, which is like the next county on from Devon, and I kind of wanted to stay in the south. So I joined 40 Commando, and because I was 17, so here's the deal: you can pass the training, but you can't go to war until you're 18. So I joined my unit, and the troop that I joined went straight out to Afghanistan, so I couldn't go. Right at that particular time, I had to wait till the following year before I went to Afghanistan for the first time. And then so I basically got sent to Egypt. And I did like a bunch of dive training, which was just like a drinking session. To be honest, it was like a month of drinking and just diving, which was a lot of work. I just wanted to have some fun at that point, so that was great. And then I joined my unit, and we went to Sierra Leone that year, and then we came back, and then I did a bunch of build-up training. So this is the thing for like Afghanistan. There's like 6 months of build-up training before the tour itself.
Right.
So all of that next year. So now we're in 2007. We deployed to Afghanistan 2007, came back in, I think, April 2008, came back from that. And then I went on to selection for the United Kingdom Special Forces. And then I went through that rotation 4 times. So then I ended up leaving it was a total of 6 years was when I left. And then I went into private security work after that. So then I did like another 2.5 years of living in the Indian Ocean, scrapping with pirates. So I did that for a little bit. And then so that's like a sum total of like 8.5 years. And then after that, I just decided it was kind of time for a change. I met a nice lady in San Diego at that point. And then I came over here. We spent about 5 years together, and that was the reason why I came, and then we went our separate ways. But then that was how I sort of ended up here in San Diego.
So one of my thoughts is you've led an interesting life for sure. The childhood you spoke about, I'm 52, so definitely it's been a long time since I was a kid. And I remember when I was younger, like kids we did ride our bikes all the time. And kind of where I live now, I live in a little subdivision, and I'm surprised when the bus comes because there's all these kids. But I'm like, how come I never see these kids? Like, I had no idea these kids even lived in this neighborhood. And so like what you're describing, you're younger than me. Now that you're in America, do you see a difference in like the youth in America now? Like they don't seem to get it. I mean, there's great kids, because I love riding BMX bikes, and there's these great kids making great strides and crazy BMX stuff. But overall, I feel like our society just doesn't get out and get healthy like they used to.
I think there's I think there's two things. There's like two forms of separation in that. I think there's the separation of geography. I think that plays a part in it, and I think
Mm-hmm.
there's the time that we live in as well. I think that plays a huge part in it. And then if you overlap those things, that can depend on how bad it is. Like here in San Diego, in like the mainland San Diego, you don't see kids anywhere except the island of Coronado, which is its own separate city. It doesn't come under the government of San Diego.
Right.
They actually have things right. They don't tolerate any bullshit there. So it's very safe for kids to walk around with their backpacks on. You see them just walking around. It's great. Like kids being kids again.
Yeah.
It's a very safe environment for them. But like here in San Diego, with just like what's happened over the last few years, just how bad things have gotten, it's not, it wouldn't be safe for kids to go out here, I don't think, which is sad. Also, it's quite built up and urban, but having done some traveling around this country, and I've gone to places, states like Wyoming, where it's everything that I described, where it's just amazing. Like kids that
Right.
actually get to be kids. Because if any lunatic turned up, well, the whole town or village would go and oust that person,
Right. I think that's true. I think because more, I mean, I've lived in different rural areas growing up, and it's definitely more kids can get out more and do more in rural areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like where you have an abundance of just freedom,
Yeah.
and like you said, rural areas where there's like, it's actually, I haven't been back to England for a long time. It's been like over 11 years, I think, since I went back, but I did pop back when I was 24. Yeah, so that was 11 years ago. And even then at 24, I wanted to go back and see the woods that we used to play in. And those woods weren't there anymore. They were housing estates.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like, wow, I don't think I want to go back again, because I want to keep my memories, I don't want to go back
Yes.
and have it change.
I grew up in the Midwest in Missouri, and I've been back a few times, and every time I go back, I'm just like, holy cow.
It's different.
Like, everything has grown up. It's not like it's where I used to play in the woods and go run around and stuff. Now it's all houses or businesses, and like what I used to think was rural is just an extension of St. Louis now.
Wow. Yeah. It's changing. It's changing a lot. But no, I'm very grateful for it. I'm so happy that I didn't grow up in like a big city.
Mm-hmm.
It was purely, I think, because of like the innocence, that like there was never any drugs or anything like that, and just like all anyone wanted to do was just play hide and seek. That's all we kind of did. And
Yeah.
then we would we were little shits. We'd terrorize security guards. We'd plan like attacks and like get ourselves covered in mud and sneak in. And then I was like, I think I want to do this for a living. That's why I became a soldier.
Yeah, I tried to I just went down and visited my great nieces, and I'm like, I sent actually took one of my BMX bikes down there, and so they're just starting to ride bikes, and I'm like, man, I'll stay outside as long as they want to stay outside, and just to get them active and get them playing and get them moving, and hopefully instill that in them for the rest of their lives.
Do you know, it's like, here's a really interesting place, like have you spent much time here before in like Southern California, San Diego?
Not a whole lot now.
It's a really interesting place. It's a freak show. Like here, it's like there's like everything is going on at once, and you'll see very fit, healthy, strong people here. You'll see extremely unhealthy people here as well. It's like it's everything. It's all sort of ends of the spectrum all happening at once. But I think one of the reasons, one of the things I was very grateful for growing up were just the role models that I had, and my father was like the top. Like, and just to watch him, my father was a competitive canoeist. He got into the Great Britain Olympic team for canoeing, and then he chased a few other things after that, and then he got into powerlifting, and then someone came along and spotted him one day and said, "Hey, you're pretty good. You should compete." And he told him to fuck off. He's like, no, I just want to be left alone. I don't want anything to do with that. And then this guy wouldn't stop harassing him and said, "Hey, look, I'll pay for everything. I'll pay for your competition entry. All you got to do is just turn up and do what you do here in competition, and you'll do fine." And somehow the guy wore my father down. And my dad, he turned up to this competition and won it. And then I think he liked that. So then he went to another competition and another. And then before he knew it, he was at the World Championships. And then he had the world record for squatting and deadlifting for his age and weight category. My father died a couple of years ago. He was 59, and he was just, every year he'd break the world record a little bit more just to piss people off, just so the next person couldn't come and do it. But he was an incredible man to grow up looking at that, right? To have that I don't know, there was always a role model somewhere where I grew up. Even your next door neighbors were respectful. Like everyone was for you. It felt like it was like a positive funnel system that just wanted everyone to do well in life.
Like the tide raise all ships.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
That's so funny because I actually I didn't start powerlifting till I was 27.
Wow.
And I did it because I was living in a small town in Elko, and the guys at the gym kept coming up going, hey, you need to do this. And then they're like, we're putting on a meet. And I'm like, cool, I'd love to watch it. And they're like, no, you're not watching it. You're lifting in it. And I'm like, I can't lift in it. I'm not there. They go, yes, you are. You're perfectly good.
Wow.
And then I did my first meet, and I'm like, oh my God, I miss competing. This was so much fun. And just ran with it from there.
Wow. That's incredible. And so you were 27, and then how long did you lift? And you were lifting at like the highest level, right?
Yeah, I lifted for, like, I hit my peak around 37, 39, somewhere in there.
Okay. And you were powerlifting, right? So it's squats and deadlifts and bench pressing?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And it was a blast. I love it. I mean, I'll live for the rest of my life. There's no way I'll ever stop. I don't know if I'll compete again necessarily, but I always compete with myself. So,
right. How did you do injury wise?
I actually I had a lot of torn muscles, but I never. My joints are fine. My tendons and ligaments are fine. I still have my little stuff. I was dealing with a low back injury, but that was more because I was doing granite for a while and trying to train. And I have really, really bad sleep issues. I have narcolepsy. So my recovery's pretty shitty. And I kind of, my brain's stronger than my recovery sometimes, I say, and I need to back down a little bit to let myself recover. But yeah, I got through it all really good. But I was fortunate that when I started, it was one of the first sports where I actually admitted, like, I need some help. Like, I need to learn more. Where normally I'm just like, muscle, just tough it out, tough through it, get through it. And so I became a really good technician, and I think that helped me avoid a lot of injuries over that time. So then how did you, after your military, you moved to San Diego? When did you decide, hey, I'm going to be in the fitness industry and I want to help people?
Do you know, my whole life, I've always been in what I would call like fitness. But honestly, that term today, fitness industry, just scares me now because of what I think it's like an ironic term because of what it is now, right? Like the health and fitness industry. I think it's like, at least like the YouTube version. It's like the sex and drugs industry, really. I don't think there's much going on in terms of health and fitness, which is a shame because it's not even athletes that are coming through and standing up, right? It's just people that are, it's like a modeling agency or whatever.
I do feel like one of the reasons I started, because for the people that are listening, this actually happened because I started following him on Instagram. And I think at one point we started messaging and I'm like, hey, do you want to be on a podcast? Or something like that. One of the reasons I started following you was because it was like, hey, this guy's pretty, like, how would I say, like straightforward and basic. Like, you're not pumping all this bullshit. You're like, hey, this isn't that complicated. Here's what you need to do. And I think that, like, the term industry is the one. I don't hate the fitness part as much as the fitness industry, the industry part, because I see so much, and there's times where I scroll through Instagram and I'm like, oh my God, like, I know why this turns people off, because you see, it's like everybody's just trying to make money, and they're going to tell you what they think you want to hear to make more money, instead of actually, like, doing the quality and telling people how to get better, what they need to get better.
Do you know that what you just said there is like it's like the lifeline behind why I'm doing what I'm doing, which is just to try and help people. And I made a video, I think, about this a week or so ago, which was just this idea of trying to inform people of what they need to hear, like the truth. And that the truth can appear very ugly next to a lie that's been insulated in nonsense, but has been made to look very attractive. And people are so easily led astray today. And you can coat bullshit and prettiness and make it very digestible for people and send it, and people will pay their life savings to hear that. But you could try and present the truth to someone on a platter for free, and they'll turn it, they'll turn around and say, I'm generalizing a lot here, but just as a general idea, it's very difficult to inform people of what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And also I quite like that as a challenge. Again, I think it comes back to role models. We don't have a lot anymore. Mm-hmm. You go down to the like, you start at like the town level. You go as even back to families now. There's so many dysfunctional families. Fathers and male figures were always great role models for me growing up, and now it's almost like it's illegal to be a man first of all, and then to be a male role model on top of that. I mean, they're non-existent.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that just in order to get people to do the right thing, I don't think you need a stage to scream and shout on. You just need to do what you're supposed to do silently, and eventually people will notice. I think people are starting to get to the point where they're sick and tired of the bullshit, I think.
Yeah.
There's certain names of individuals on that were big in the social media world that have been pointed out for lying in the last little while, and people followed them and jumped onto their every word, and then they were exposed, and they're like, oh, so it's. I think people are kind of ready to hear some truth a little bit.
I think it's getting more that way, and I hope it's getting more that way. I admit to being kind of pessimistic sometimes about it. Yeah. Just because you see it so much, but there's the one saying, and this is like part of the whole propaganda thing: lie and lie and lie and keep lying until people believe it.
Politicians.
And I think that has happened. And I've written for some of the big, like bodybuilding fitness magazines, and eventually I stopped writing for them because I learned enough to know that their whole plan is like, basically, we're going to rotate people every 3 years. So we're going to tell people what they want to hear for 3 years, so they buy our magazines. And then by the time they figure out it's not working, we're going to have new people coming in. Mm-hmm. And like, that's their business plan. And I'm like, I don't want to be associated with that. Like, I want to be putting out the newest, solid, real information. Even if people don't like it, if everyone comes out and keeps giving them good information, eventually they're going to go, okay, this is going to take a little work. I need to listen to these people.
Well, Joe, that's amazing. Like, when you started talking about that, for whatever reason, what jumped into my mind was the Bigger, Stronger, Faster documentary when that came out. That was a great. Mm-hmm. You've seen this?
Yeah, actually, the squatter in that movie who crashes, that's me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, then you're in the movie.
I was actually on the cover of a lot of their promo stuff.
Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. Well, then there you go. Like, I thought that was a really, really good documentary that came out that actually started to sort of, it kind of got into some subjects. I love that it wasn't biased. It just said things how they were.
Yeah.
It wasn't trying to put a spin on things. It was literally, it just says, here's the information, do what you want with it. And that was and there was one part in that documentary where you had the photographer who was taking pictures of guys and girls. And then he said, oh, we do the before and after photos in the same day. And he shows you how they do it and how they airbrush everything. And I was like, if that's not enough, like, if people are still buying this, if people are still being led astray by marketing to such an extent, then yeah.
Yes,
it's hard not to be pessimistic. Right?
Yeah, yes, it is hard to be, even in like the powerlifting and strength industry. There's so much stuff that's been said for so long that people don't want to veer too far away from it, even if they don't actually do it.
Yep.
I mean, like, I have friends that are pro bodybuilders, and like a lot of them, it's like, yeah, they told me they wanted a workout for the magazine, so I gave them a workout. I mean, is it one you've ever done? They're like, no. Like, I train by how my body feels and what it needs. Like,
right. Wow. Yeah, it's incredible. It is, but it's but it's like, even for me and like the coaching side of things, actually there was something I learned. I studied in that timeline when I came to San Diego. I did some studying. I studied mathematics. I always wanted a challenge. I wanted something. So I studied mathematics and really, really enjoyed it. It kind of reminded me of like that soldiering aspect of things. You have a group of people at the beginning of the class, a percentage are going to go because they can't make it, and you've got a few that are left at the end. And I really liked that. And math people were kind of cool people as well. And there was this fundamental idea in mathematics that I've taken with me ever since. And this idea that you should never, ever, ever use a formula until you can prove it to yourself to be true. And that's why a big part of mathematics is doing proofs. So they might teach you something like the quadratic formula, and like, here it is, but now let's show you why it exists.
Yes.
Let's actually go for, and then if you have a good professor, what you'll do at the beginning of an exam is prove all the formulas before you can use them. Otherwise, you're just a parrot. You're repeating information. You don't actually know anything. You have to prove it to yourself. And mathematics is about integrity. It's about truth. And I always think if people did that with all the information that they came across on social media, if you just entertained an idea and then put it through a series of testing, collected data on it, and then took a sort of hypothesis at the beginning, measure it at the end, is it still the same? That's how you could dispel all nonsense and lies. But that would require people to do, a little bit of work. And I think that's where you lose people, is people would actually have to use their brains and go through this system, say, okay, this guy says this. It's not what I'm used to hearing, but I'm not going to just discount it yet. I'm going to take this idea. I might even use it for a little bit. It's perhaps a new training methodology for a powerlifter or for a track sprinter or something. Let me just rule it out to see if it's nonsense or to actually see if it has any worth.
Mm-hmm.
And if everyone did that and just ran it through for a little bit and went, wow, okay, it was very unpopular, this idea, but it's taken my training up a notch. Wow, this is incredible. And now you've got another sort of tool in your tool belt. But God, if everyone did that, it would be so easy.
Well, I think that's one of the big things. And I think this goes beyond fitness, but it seems like nowadays people just want to be told knowledge. They don't want to learn how to learn. They don't want to learn how to think. Like I read a lot of different studies, and I'm getting to the point where I hate reading studies. Because usually most of the studies I look at, I'm like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? Like you did this study based on an outcome. And usually if you look deep enough, you can find out who funded the study. And but people want to read the studies and go, oh, this is what it is. Or they want to go to someone and have them tell them what to do. And like, I'll have people, this is one of my favorite things, was to go to the gym. Like if I'm on the internet or something and I see somebody who's doing a new exercise and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to see this. I know it. And I would go to the gym and I would see someone doing it and I would act dumb. I'd basically go up and go like, hey, what's that? What are you doing right there? And they're like, oh, it's this exercise. I saw so-and-so do this. And I go, oh, cool. Like, what does it work? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? And I'm like, well, how are you fitting it in your program? Oh, I don't know. I just thought it looked cool, so I'm doing it. And I'm like, you didn't stop at any point to go, wait a minute, what does this work? Why would I be doing it? How would I add it? Like, there's no thought whatsoever. And I see a lot of people, I'll ask people, because I do I put on seminars and all kinds of stuff. And I'll ask people, well, why do you do that? Well, I don't know. I saw so-and-so do it, or so-and-so told me to do it. I go, but why are you doing it? And like, they have no idea. We're like, if you come to my seminar and I change your technique, I hope to God when someone asks you why, you can go, oh, well, because if you do this, it gets more hamstring and it's more efficient in the structure of the body. Like, I try to explain to people, this is why I want you to do it, because I want to start them thinking and learning,
Well, it's a self-pride thing as well, isn't it? Like if someone came up to you and asked you a question and you were caught short, it would be embarrassing. So you want to be like, if someone asked me, hey, why are you doing this? I want to be able to go, and that's the same as you, the people I work with. I say, like, hypothetically, if someone came up to you in a gym right now and said, why are you doing this? What is your answer? And I want them to be able to go boom, boom, boom. You must have an understanding of what you're doing. Otherwise, like it's pointless. It's useless.
Yeah. I mean, how can you have any mind-muscle connection if you don't even know what muscles it's working?
But again, you look at this, the people that are floating around on planet Earth and are doing these things in gyms are products of the education system. And the education system teaches you to be obedient. Mm-hmm. And it teaches you to think within inside a square. And it says, this is the parameters we want you to think freely within. But don't you go there thinking out here, because then you'll figure out how badly we're screwing you. And we don't want to do that because we want to feed you to the corporations that are going to really fuck you later on in life. So it's a little wonder why people aren't, thinking properly, because you're taught that it's illegal to think in school, and I think that's a big part. I'm being a bit dramatic, of course, but there's a brilliant people and there's brilliant teachers and there's brilliant individuals within these institutions, but the institutions themselves are inherently corrupt, I think, and that's why we have what we have today. And like you said, going back to like the test, the studies and things, and there's academics now that build their entire lives upon study collection, and without asking the most important question, who funded the study? you know, and I don't know what I'm allowed to and not allowed to say on your podcast, so I won't mention any names. But like, if
Whatever
a
you
patient,
want.
oh really? Oh,
Yes.
okay, excellent. Okay, well then, okay, if Pfizer says they're going to run a vaccine, you know, study and says that everything is going to be good and great, then well, of course they want you to buy their product, so it's going to come out a particular way, right?
Yes.
You know, so it's like God, I don't
And
know.
I think that kind of goes the same with the fitness stuff. If you, if it's, what was the old saying I used to hear all the time when I was a kid? If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. So like if somebody's telling you, oh, if you train this way, you're going to lose 30 pounds in the first month and you're going to be in great shape. Like my brain's going, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Right. But again, that's it. It's like what some marketing can do. It can prey on those what's the word I'm looking for? But like those fears that people have, you know, and it kind of it can get you to do you can the easiest thing in the world is to sell a dream to someone, right? And
Yeah.
God, it's coming from someone else. And if you have some sort of perceived authority, if you have letters in front of your name, or if you have a lot of followers on a social media, people take that's like a legitimate reason to follow someone now, or to listen to someone, is just because of that. And I think that's a problem. And that's why I always say to people, never, ever, ever believe anything I tell you. Like, entertain it and go and prove it to yourself to be true, but never
Yes.
believe me. And if
Well,
we
yeah,
get
I think that's the best thing. And like when I got serious about powerlifting and I decided like I don't have the knowledge I need more knowledge. I started researching people. And like, okay, this guy I'm not so sure about. I don't think I want to listen to him. This guy, man, he's coached the people, he's done it himself. Like, this guy's the guy I want to go talk to. And I was very specific about who. I mean, I would listen to anything from almost anybody. But depending on who they were, I would take it more serious. And even at that, it's like, okay, man, he explained it. This makes sense. Now I'm going to try it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I'm going to see if it works. And even when it didn't work, I would call that person up and go, hey, it's not working. I'm not saying your stuff's wrong. I'm saying maybe I'm doing it wrong. So can I ask you some questions?
That's it. That's the beautiful part of training. Then now you're locked into that dialogue and that exploration, which is what training's about, right? It's like I can teach something, or you can teach someone to something, the general idea, but we interpret information differently. And then there's that alone time you have to spend with it as well, which is really, really important.
Well, I think that it sounds like we're kind of on the same wavelength of like, I tell all my clients, we need to learn to communicate together. Because I can be the greatest coach in the world, but honestly, it's your body. And once you learn how to read your body, nobody's going to be able to read it better. So then I need the communication from you to let me know what you're feeling, so I can guide you through this journey, to hopefully save you as much time as possible and not make the mistakes that I've made and get you to the place that you're to reach your goals. But it's going to be a link between both of us. It's not just me telling you what to do and you never saying, you just going, okay, I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And my father used to taught me this incredible like warm-up routine for anything. And it was just this ability to sit there and really dial in with yourself and see what you have to play with on any given day. And he would always say that you'll never have the same state of body twice. However you wake up with in the morning, like whatever you've got to play with on that given day, whatever is written on the gospel that you wrote on a Sunday evening in a comfortable environment, this is what I'm going to do this training week. On Wednesday, it says I'm going to lift this amount. Great. But how do you feel on Wednesday? That's why we go through this warm-up practice where I can sit and go, okay, I've got written down that I'm going to do my heaviest deadlift today for 6 reps. And then you get in and you start warming up and you go, hold on a minute. My hamstring's talking a little loudly to me. But the gospel said I should lift 6 times. It's like, well, I learned that the hard way of saying, okay, well, maybe it's not so much of a gospel. Maybe if my hamstring is talking, my body actually has the final say in things. And it took me about 10 years of lifting to figure that out. That I should listen to my body before what I have written on the piece of paper.
I think I would have really liked your dad. That is such an advanced way to look at it. That I grew up in the Midwest, blue collar. My family is all working class. And, you took pride in the fact that you got a job done no matter what. And I approached lifting the same way. We're like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm doing it. I don't give a shit if I'm sick. I don't care. Like, I'm going to get it done. And, And I learned eventually that you're not the same every day. And especially in powerlifting, what happens is people would be like, oh, this is my PR. Like I'm an 800-pound squatter. So then they'll write the whole program based on, but I'm like, but you peaked specifically for that meet to be an 800-pound squatter. I go, you can't do 800 pounds every day. Mm-hmm. Like, so you're not an 800-pound squatter every single day.
Right.
That's just what you peaked at.
Right. Yes. Yeah. No, it's God, I mean, like the training side of things and like the scheduling of training is something I just love solving problems. I love problem solving, and I love looking at people's routines and helping them progress through and you know, explaining to someone that training is not a linear progression. Mm-hmm. You don't just get better. And these phases could be called different things. I mean, you could call these phases Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, and Pluto for all that matters. But the language that I was taught was conditioning, loading, and recovery. I would always start an athlete in recovery and just the ground first. Just make sure that see what injuries you're working with, what imbalances. Start to suggest the idea, whatever it is. If they're a footballer, if they're a powerlifter, whatever it is, step the ground and see what they've got to work with. Just what, do you know what I mean? Like if we're going to build a building, make sure the foundation is level first. And then
it's almost like when I have a new client that I don't know or haven't worked with, it's almost like I'd like them to just take 2 weeks off.
Yes, absolutely. Just please. That's what this is. This month, this recovery month is like a month off. And let's just see let's look at some wax on, wax off movements. Let's look at the squat in its purest form without any weight. And then, because this person might be used to squatting 400, 500, 600 pounds, but hold on, let's take the weight off and let's see what we do. Oh, wow. Okay. We've already found an imbalance. We should probably work on that because that might be stopping you to get to 650 pounds if you're at 600 right now.
Yep.
And then once everything is good and we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's, we can go, okay, well, let's step into this conditioning realm now, which is where you would take the idea, whatever they're training for, and make it unnecessarily difficult. So if they're already a seasoned athlete, so if you're training the bench press, you'd add some issues to the bench press. Perhaps you could strap some bands around the bench press or some chains or make it a little instability. Just do something to make it a little bit more difficult. You could take away some of their food. You could deprive them of sleep. You could dehydrate them a little bit. You could add some stresses in their lives. Line up all their ex-girlfriends after a training session or something and just have them greet them all one at a time. Generally make their life a little bit unpleasant for a month. And then you step into the loading phase and then we remove all of the issues and give them all of the food, all of it, like a plant. You deprive it of all the things it needs and then put it in the sun and water it, it's going to blossom. And then that loading phase, naturally, they go up, right? The training progresses to a point. And that plateau effect starts to come in. And then just before the plateau effect, we back away and we go back into recovery. So let's say we gained 10 steps of fitness. In recovery, we might lose 3 steps, but overall we've gained 7 steps. And then, we start the whole process again. And that's this. So training it goes up, peak, drops, and then up, peak, drops. And like you're saying that the peaks of those loading phases, you can start to measure and make predictions for competitions and things like that.
Yeah, and it's linear. If you step back far enough, it's linear.
Yep.
But the closer you get, there's a lot of ups and downs. Like every powerlifter, all the best powerlifters I know, we all have stories of that 500-pound bench took me a year to get past. Because it peaks, you're not always going to get better. And I could never get all 3 of my lifts to grow at the same time. Like my squat would be doing awesome and my bench should be so-so, or my bench should be doing awesome and my squat would be so-so. Like I could never get them to all grow at the same rate at the same time.
Well, I think that's training naturally. There's only so much energy and thought that you can put into something. So I've always been a believer in develop one, maintain the others. And then if you can develop one aspect and maintain the other 2 or whatever it is, then then progression is like this, right? You kind of lift each one up at a time.
Yes.
And as long as the distances don't get too big between them, then you're okay.
That's interesting because that's actually what I did. I always had main focus is on my squat. I need my squat to go up. And now these 2, I want them to try to still go up a little bit, but that's not my focus. My focus is on this.
Right.
And that's most of my career. That's how I did it. Because like you said, there's so many things that affect our body. And I think this is one of the things people don't seem to understand. Everybody wants to think about the gym. All they want to think about is their training. And I'm like, but training's such a small, minute amount of your week. Like, you
Yes.
need to be eating, you need to be sleeping. I mean, if you don't recover, you don't grow, you don't get stronger.
Yeah, I mean, there's 168 hours in a week, and I spend 3 hours and 45 minutes of it in the gym.
Yeah.
And you look at that as a fraction; it's very, very small. And
Yeah, it's small. But people are like,
it's
what exercises do I need to do? What
yeah.
training program do I need to do? Like,
But you know,
are
so
you
something I've
sleeping and eating?
oh, it's amazing where the spotlight has been placed, and something that I people kind of find humorous, I think, when they hear it at first, but I mean it in a really sincere way. I always ask people to date their exercises, like really get to know them and get to know a weight. Like if you get to 225 pounds on the bench press, stay there for a year and really get to know it. Like date it, take it, like really just understand it at a really intimate level. And if you do that, when you make that jump to 245 or whatever the next progression is, like you've gotten to know that previous weight really well. And it'll make the next weight a little bit easier. But it just seems that most people are led by the want to lift heavier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like anything in life, if you place the focus on that, it's almost sabotage. The seeds of its destruction are woven into that thought process. Like if you're just focusing on wanting to lift heavy, if that's your entire thing to do, then it usually ends in disaster. If someone just falls in love with the sheer practice of what they're doing, heaviness of weight just accompanies the natural process of doing what you love.
Well, I think I kind of did this looking back on my career, and I know a lot of other powerlifters that have done this, is we get so focused on, we got to go heavier, we got to go heavier. And then a year or two down the road, you start looking at your program and you're like, dude, I'm not doing any conditioning. I'm not doing anything beyond like 3 reps. And like all I'm doing is lifting heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in order to be good at recovery, you still got to be in some sort of shape.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
if you're not working on all the other different muscles and you're just pounding this one heavy movement all the time, like it's going to leave you with weaknesses that are going to break.
That was literally I've had so many of is injuries. I'm sure you as well, and just all of my injuries came as a result of most of them. There was a couple of accidents, but all of my injuries came as a result of like imbalances,
Mm-hmm.
like the vast majority of them, and especially I say that there was a couple of exceptions. One was like the United Kingdom Special Forces selection process, where you have huge weight on your shoulders and you're running over the mountains, and that trash, like my back was trashed, and I still have weakness from that. I'm sure of it. So I had to learn to rebuild those weaknesses, and I also have extremely tight hip flexors. Naturally, I have very, very tight hip flexors. So I can never do enough glute supplement work, to
Mm-hmm.
and hip stretching. And as a result, I've always had lower back. I used to have a lot of lower back injuries, but now it's just it's more like tenderness sometimes.
Right. Yeah, I'm
So
actually
those.
going through. I had a company installing granite, so I'm carrying stone. I'm bent over, fabricating sinkholes, and just destroying my back. And then I'm still trying to train heavy. And then with my recovery, and I ended up tweaking my back. And it took me a long time. I'm like, man, every time I go heavy, like I'm hurting. And I'd get up in the morning, and man, I'd look like I had scoliosis. And I know a lot of really smart people, and I got a lot of people looking at me and talking with them and stuff. And eventually, it turned out I had like one of my QLs got tighter than hell, and then the other one started getting weaker, and then like so all these, and then my glutes were starting to, everything just kept changing and changing. And eventually, when I figured it out, I'm like, that's it. I stopped squatting for a while. I started really looking at my unilateral flexibility when I was stretching, and I'm like, oh my God, like this glute is so much tighter than the other one, and this hip flexor's tight, and this QL's tight. And it wasn't until I started releasing those, getting them stretched out, and then and I'm starting to squat again now. And like I only squatted like 400 pounds for like sets of 5 yesterday, but I got up today and I'm like, my back's tired, but it doesn't hurt. Like for a
Wow.
long time when I would squat, the next day I was hurting.
So
And
it's
it's such a simple thing, and I'm like, man, I've been doing this for years. Why couldn't I figure this out sooner? But
still, hey, that's amazing. Like literally, the when I left the military and I started doing getting into lifting, my father was powerlifting and I was inspired, so I started doing a little bit of lifting, and I couldn't even deadlift 135 pounds before my back would go out on me. It would collapse. It would just completely go. And that was being bent over, you know how it is for 5 days, and then you're upright, and then it's 6 weeks of gentle exercise.
Yes.
And then I would go in with, maybe 3 months had passed, and I'd go in with an attempted lift, and then it would happen again. And I would, okay, this would go on for a lot of time. And then I realized the major culprit was a tight quad. My QL was completely tight. It was so seized on one side, like you said. So when I did like the stretch, like I stand over and lean and pause, like, okay, that side's good. And then, wow, I couldn't even get anything. And as a result, it caused one of my hips to be higher on one side. My SI joint was all out of shock. And then I went to see a guy who just yanked my leg once. It was the closest to blacking out I'd ever come. Like when the guy yanked my leg, and it was like a bolt of electricity went through me. And then I started lifting 135, 225, 315, 405, no problems. No problems at all. I thought I was finished. I thought I would never be able to lift. And I just said, oh, it's that past military experience. It destroyed my back, of which it did cause some damage, but it wasn't the major issue. It was just imbalances. It was just tight.
And then the longer you let those go, even in your instance, then one glute gets tighter, then one hamstring gets tighter. And then as those ones get tighter and you try to train them, the other side's doing all the work and it's getting stronger, which is creating even more of a problem. And then we're like, oh, I feel good. I'm walking around. I'm fine. But as soon as you load a little stress on it, bam, it's right back to where it was. It's so interesting that something so small can cause so much pain and just mess everything up. Yeah. And that's where I think with a lot of lifters, when they get so focused on just their training and they're just training heavy all the time, they're not noticing these things. If you go back and do some unilateral work, and if you're stretching regular, you can kind of start paying attention to what's going on. Hey man, all of a sudden, man, my split squat's getting super strong on my right leg and my left leg's not doing very good. I wonder why.
Well, that's like my warm up now is so I'm kind of naturally quite a regimented person anyway. So I have a symmetrical practice that I go through. My warm up takes probably about 20 minutes, and I don't include a 5-minute walk. I park my car 5 minutes away from the gym. I walk in, so I'm kind of warm. I ditch my bag. I go through some foam rolling, and then I go into a mobility sequence, and then I go into those unilateral stretches. So I go into a runner's lunge stretch. That's the first thing. Then I'll go into a the figure 4 stretch, like the glute medius. Then I'll go into a very specific QL stretch. And then after that, I'll do a supine twist stretch on each side. And I know that even now, just when I do my supine twist stretch, it's not the same on one side as the other. I can always easily adjust on one side, but there's one side that's very stubborn.
Yeah.
And then after that, I go into actually some preparation exercises. I go into some exercises that wake my transverse abdominis up. Very basic wax on exercises. They're not attractive exercises, but like the dead bug pose where you just kind of lie there, set one leg out, just to get my transverse fired up. And then after that, I'll go into some glute bridges, just so I can get the action of pulling my hips through and actually getting my glutes to do the work, which is the most amazing cut and paste drill I found. I learned so much from feeling that movement that I could cut and paste into the deadlift. That feeling of the hips coming through and pulling the glutes through, which takes some of that strength off my lower back. Then I'll do some one-legged bridges, and then I'll just go onto my hands and knees and just those kickbacks, hip extensions, and then making sure that really they're very basic wax on, wax off movements, but to feel what's going on, can I get the same amount of glute engagement on my right side as I can on my left? And if I can't, if something's not working, I'd be a fool to go in and try and lift heavy on that particular day, because there's going to be a disastrous outcome.
That's two things that came up while you were talking there, like the dead bug and the bridges. I see a lot of people oh, I can do that. And it's yeah, but you're not doing it with the intent. And you're doing a dead bug and your hips are twisting. You need to brace and hold that stability. And it's trying to teach people the intent of an exercise can be super difficult sometimes.
Honestly, I'm in Pacific Beach in San Diego, and there's all these pretty ladies everywhere in yoga pants, and there I am doing my exercises, and I'm soaked in sweat, drenched like an animal. I'm sure people think I'm some sort of lunatic. Before I even get into my lifting, I've already soaked my t-shirt through, because it's just there's so much thought, just the stretches and these movements. I'm like, okay, I guess it's a warm up, so I'm definitely warm and I'm ready to lift, you know?
Yeah, it's almost like I tell people, like, make it hard.
Yep.
Like, I want you to make that exercise hard. You want to have so much intent and so much mind muscle connection, and that
Yep.
you're like every little bit of that movement, you're actually focused. And again, that goes back to knowing, wait a minute, what am I working here? Why am I doing this exercise?
Well, do you want to, it's again, I take this from the concept of mathematics. Like, you get into the third semester of calculus, they start talking about this stuff called component form, where you take complex ideas and you break it down into individual components. You address the simplicity stuff and then you reassemble it. I guess you could, like, if you were fixing a clock, if there's a broken clock, it's very complex, but you take it all apart and you get this cog and you sharpen it and then you put it back in and, oh, now the clock works. It was a simple solution to the broken problem. And then the same with training it. Like, I take these deadlifts and whatever, and they're just complex versions of the simple movements. And when I go through that linear sequence of preparation exercises, I'm memorizing thoughts and feelings. So I'm memorizing as I go through that. And then by the time I go into my deadlift, I'm in like a trance. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want anyone to disturb me, because I've currently got those feelings memorized and I'm about to assemble them together. So when I get like the most worrisome, not worrisome, but the most the sets that are the most difficult for me when I'm warming up are the lightest ones.
Yes.
Like the first couple, the heaviest set is actually always fine, typically. Like, there's work involved, but like by that point, the thing is assembled itself when it's on working on all cylinders. Those first couple sets, that's where I know what's going on. That's where I know what I've got to work with for that day, and it's building the thing, you know.
Well, it's kind of like, did you ever hear of Ernie France? He was a legendary powerlifter, bodybuilder, and he was one of the first guys I heard. He would say, treat the lightweights like they're heavy and the heavyweights like they're light.
Wow, that's perfect.
And it was the treat the heavyweights like they're light. That one kind of bothers me, because it's like, no, you still got to focus in it. But I think what he's saying is just like, don't let the weight get in your head. But when you're warming up, don't just act like it's a warm up. Act like it's the lift. Like, focus, have intent. And that was one of those things I learned early on that I truly took to heart.
Yeah. Well, especially something like squats, where there's actually almost like a flexibility component and a mobility component to those first couple sets where you're not quite as warm, you know? And it's like,
and that's honestly, most people get hurt lifting lighter weight.
Yes.
Than their heavier weight, because they're not paying attention.
Right. Yeah. It's like crossing a road when it's busy, huh? Or when it's
it was funny. Something else you said, and I might have said this in one of my other podcasts lately. When I was coming up, you know, I had that blue collar, like, get it done mentality. And I started talking to all these, like, world-class, you know, the better I got, the better people I got to meet. So, like, I'm to the point where I'm not great, but I'm going to competitions where I can meet some of these great guys. And so, like, some of the top guys are like, yeah, if I go in and my back feels kind of weird, I don't do it. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't do it? Like, you do it later? You mean you warm up more? Like, what do you mean? They're like, no, something's off and my body needs more rest. So I go home. And I'm like, this, like, just blew my brain apart when I was coming up. And then it kept happening. I kept talking to these guys I looked up to, and they're like, yeah, if something doesn't feel right, you got to listen to your body. Like, I don't care what your program says. What is your body saying?
Well, would you think that it's better to be raised that way and then to listen to that, rather than to be raised lazily and then to be encouraged to be motivated? Do you know what I mean? Like, if I went through all that military stuff, and there's no way I could have just put my hand up and said, hey, I don't feel like doing it today. My body's a little bit tired, right? It doesn't work. So it teaches you that ability to drive, right? And like you, and that saying, that idea that you were raised with, it gives you that tenacity. And if you have that drive, it's better to have someone come along and say, we're going to tame you a little bit, and rather than to try and get someone to be motivated and driven enough. That I don't know how that, the nature of the people that I would want to help and work with, I physically can't be next to someone who's not driven and motivated. I don't have the skill set to be able to help that person. But if someone's very driven like yourself, motivated, and it's like, okay, all we have to do is actually tame this individual, that's very doable.
Well, that's I've never actually thought about it in that way. But I would agree with you. I think it's better to, like, grow up with that tough, get it done attitude and then have to pull back later. And I actually think about, like, if I have a young kid if I'm starting with a young teenager, like I can push him. First of all, his recovery is going to be crazy, especially if he just hit puberty.
Yes.
And he doesn't have the skill to really push his body. So I can push him really hard and he'll recover. So it's kind of like I want to push him hard and I want him to grind and I want him to be tough and go. But kind of at the same time, I kind of like will drop little hints every now and then. When you get good, this has to change. Like this is going to change as you get stronger. Things are going to change. But right now, I need you to go, man. I need you to go 100 miles an hour and grind it out, and I need you to toughen out because I want to build that toughness.
Yeah.
Because like if you go to a competition and you're on a world stage, I don't want you going, well, that one feels heavy today. Like, no, come on, man. Like you're competing. Let's go. I need to have that in you, but I need you to know at some point that like this is training. This isn't the competition. And I think there's a point when you're young and you're new where it's like, hey, I might not be feeling it today. You know what? You need to nut it up and get it done today. But as you become a really good athlete and you start learning your body, there's the point where you go, it's not worth me pushing through it today. I'm not sure if today is the day I should go or not, but something's making me question it, and I'd be better off just backing off a little bit.
You know that, I think, with the difference between training and competition, when it's like if you take like UKSF selection, you train in a constructive way. Despite the course being destructive itself, you train constructively for it.
Yes.
And it's just a really long competition. That's all it is, But the training that you do should not be an exact application of the course because it's destructive. It's not gonna benefit you. And I think that's where the coaches earn their money. My father, when I was a kid, we obviously from the age of 9, he knew where I was going. So there were certain skills I had to have. I had to know how to map read. That's a skill that doesn't get taught to people typically these days. And he was also smart. He was also smart enough to know that by the time you learn this stuff in like commando training, you're already slow. You're so sleep deprived at this point. Trying to learn new information is so incredibly difficult. So he made sure that I could learn how to map read, and then I was somewhat physically robust before I went in. So he would get me this backpack and put bricks in it. And then he taught me how to map read. And then my mother was not best pleased at this, but I looking back, it was great. But my father would start off by driving me like 3 miles from home. He'd throw me out the back of the car and say, make your way home. And then at 3 miles became 5, became 8, became 13 miles. And he started dropping me out in the middle of these forests in the middle of nowhere. And he said, make your way back. And I'd, use my map and compass and make my way back. And I'd be running through farmers' fields, leaping over barbed wire fences, getting chased by cows. And I came home one day and I was covered in cuts and just thick in mud. And my mum was furious. And my dad, like, he looked at me and went, where have you been, son? Why were you late? It was the most amazing thing because it was, first of all, it was the story I could share with my friends. How was your weekend? I got chased by a fucking cow. How was your weekend? And then what that taught me, like going in, like map, I didn't have to learn map reading in commando training. It was already there. So by the time the instructor said, oh, this is what a map is, this is what a compass is, and all the guys are like falling asleep in the lectures, I already had that. So I was that idea like that. I think I shared that in relation to the story of like raising kids, right? If you have a son and you're raising them, there's a balance to it, I think. And I think my dad nailed it pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I live in Nevada, so I love going out in the desert. And I don't know why, but like even when I grew up in Missouri in the woods, I have a pretty decent instinctive sense of direction. And so I don't go out there with GPSs or nothing. I just go out there. And I was actually thinking about that the other day. I'm like, I wonder how many of these people, if you took their GPS away, if they would have any idea what a compass is or a map is.
It's a skill. Again, I'll bring it up again. Like, I won't name any of the places, but like United Kingdom Special Forces selection, the first month is a hill. Sorry, is what they call the hills phase. And it's over this mountain range in South Wales. And there's another area that they go to for a week. Which is this barrenless land. There's nothing there, and it's kind of like a bog. Like when you're stood still, you're just ankle deep, and then in other places, you're waist deep. And when you break over the horizon of one ground, it all looks the same. Like there's no way to tell. So, and it's also always, there's always fog. You can't see anything. You can't see any more than 50 meters in front of you. So dialing in with that map and compass is a really incredible skill. It's actually quite a rush when you get from point A to point B, and you've got there, and you went, wow, like. I shouldn't have got there. But thanks to my map and compass and your ability to pacing is huge. Everything is built around pacing and basic speed, distance, times calculations.
Right.
So it's amazing stuff. Yeah, the ability to just. I think it's actually, I think it's a very manly thing to do. Like as a man, you should have somewhat of an input compass. Like even if you can, it's a problem.
I agree. And I mean, that goes back to the same thing. I mean, I'm amazed. I'm always amazed in my life how much I've learned through the gym and how it transfers.
Mhm.
And so like, it's the same thing that skill your dad taught you. He took you out of your comfort zone. He put you in something you didn't know and you grew.
Yep.
Well, it's the same thing in the gym. You're going to put yourself out of your comfort zone. You're going to strain. You're going to struggle. That's going to create growth.
Yep. And then you go full circle now, and you take this back to the education systems and young people growing up. And I don't think we're giving them this opportunity where kids can be experienced to certain stresses where they have the opportunity to grow. You know, that's one of the biggest problems here. Everything's about mollycoddling someone now, and it's just so soft, and you know, everyone's so afraid of being offended, and it's just it's a problem.
Well, like the sports thing where they're certain kids, they're not letting them keep score, and everybody gets a trophy. It's like, well, what does that teach them? Like losing sucks. It should suck. That motivates you to go, okay, how can I do better next time? How can I grow?
It's an amazing thing to show you where you are, so that you have a point of reference to grow from. It's an amazing thing.
So with your training, I can't remember. I remember watching one of your videos and you were talking about, I think it was something like you don't train every day. You train, like you give yourself at least one day off after every training day.
Yeah, train like every 48 hours, like on the clock. Yes. Because I'm not training for a specific skill set. Like I'm not a gymnast where there's so many skills that I have to program in every day. These are well-rehearsed skills, and I can run this through. I have like an A and a B session. So my A session would be squats, followed by bench press, wide pull-ups, dips, pendlay rows, and sit-ups. That's my A session. That takes an hour and 15 minutes to go through from start to finish. And then the B session would be deadlifts, followed by incline bench press, followed by wide pull-ups, behind the neck presses, pendlay rows, and sit-ups. That takes about an hour and 20 minutes. The deadlift session always takes a little bit more. I think that extra minute or two I need just to get myself psyched up for that last deadlift set. And then on a given week, the days change sometimes. But let's say it's a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I'll train session A on Tuesday, and then B on Thursday, and then A on Saturday, and then that just continues on to the other week. B, A, B, A, B, A. And
so you're doing, this is interesting because, you know, when I grew up, that we didn't have social media. You didn't have the internet. You basically, I learned by, when I had the money, I'd buy a bodybuilding magazine. When I didn't, I would go to the grocery store with my mom and read magazines while she was shopping, you know? And so I started out all my training, even though I wanted to get stronger for sports, what I had was bodybuilding information. So I started out basically doing bodybuilding training, you know, and did all these, split up all these muscle groups and everything. And once I got into powerlifting, I started thinking, well, wait a minute. I mean, how is this? What's the overall effect on the body? Like, just because I trained only chest and arms, the recovery my body is going through, it doesn't matter what simple muscle group it is. So then, like right now, I train pretty much, I'll train anybody. I love training all kinds of different people. So I have people in their 70s. I have a couple fitness girls. I have power lifters. I have football players. And so even with my basics, say my 70-year-old people, we're trying to get quality of life. I'm like, let's not split up the muscle groups. Let's basically, like, I'll split them up similar to powerlifting. Like, let's do upper body push movements. And then the other workout is going to be lower body squat movements, which still, both of those work the whole body if they're performed correctly. Right. And I go, that way we're not interrupting the recovery process. And we're giving the body plenty of time to recovery. And everybody's like, oh, you need to do this many exercises per muscle group. And I'm like, yeah, but if you're bench pressing right, you're working your triceps, your chest, your shoulders, your back. Like,
and your legs.
Already working everything.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's this idea of I think it's very destructive to look at individual muscles especially when you're looking at movements, like you say, you know, the bench press is a full body movement, and it's going to apply stress on the entire body. Just to view an exercise as a chest exercise or as a lat exercise or whatever. Again, if you're a bodybuilder, I think again there's a place for it. If you're using drugs and you're in the bodybuilding world and you're breaking your body parts down and you're driving nutrients to them and breaking the fibers down, and you're in recovery all the time. If you're constantly in recovery because you're held together by anabolic steroids, I think it's a very effective training methodology. But if you're not using drugs, I don't think it works very well.
Well, honestly, I don't know that I would say it's any different with drugs. Like, you can get away with more being on drugs without a doubt. But I think the same philosophies that work for drug-free would work when you're on, from my experience.
Sorry, there was a leaf blower came by then. Could you say that again, please?
I think that, like, I look at training as there's a certain way, a best way to train, and it doesn't matter if you're on drugs or not on drugs. I'm fortunate that most of my powerlifting career, I had never done any steroids. At one point, we found out I had low testosterone because I kept getting sick. So I went on HRT, and at that point, I'm like, well, the hell with it. I mean, if you know, I'm not going to compete drug free if I'm on the needle, and if I'm on the needle, I might as well experiment with it. Okay. And I actually found that I needed more recovery being on, but I was able to get away with a little bit more. So, like, I don't know that the training is all that different when you're on or off. And I actually know a few powerlifters that are literally some of the best in the world, and they're clean.
Oh, yes. So I think in relation to specifically sports, like powerlifting, 100%. But just like, I don't know if you could even call bodybuilding a sport. It's a science experiment, what these guys do, I think. And they've figured out an entire training methodology that builds around this very specific drug use. And I think bodybuilding is just a world of its own. It's very... They're not assessing performance. They're assessing aesthetics. And they can bend the rules, and they've studied this to such an extent. Like, people like Dorian Yates are brilliant, men that have gone through so much and have stood up and explained it so well. I think that like he's someone I would even go as far as to consider it like an idol of mine. Dorian Yates, just a brilliant man. But bodybuilding is a strange world of its own, I think, and it's I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to be a bodybuilder, but I just think that it comes down to, like I said, self-experimenting with different ideas and training, and having that time to say, I'm going to try this methodology. Did it work for me? Yes, it did. Excellent. Let's explore this some more. Opposed to, again, people standing up on social media platforms and saying, you should train this way, you should train this way.
Yeah.
And all this conflicting information. Whereas if people just took ideas and said, I'm going to try this routine, I'm going to try push-pull legs, I'm going to try broken down body parts, I'm going to try full body training, I'm going to run each system through for 12 months, I'm going to collect all my data and then compare it all. If everybody did that, they would be able to find the most effective strategy for them. But again...
But even at that, do you think it changes?
I'm sorry, as in...
Like, what I did to bench 400 pounds was not what I did to bench 800 pounds.
Oh, so training is an organic thing as well, isn't it? It depends on like training is never still. Do you know what I mean? And like I say, that's down to the individual, I think, to constantly, when you get to a point, because your weaknesses are always changing.
Yes.
And your strengths are always changing. And like I said earlier, this idea of like dating and exercise, date 225 for a while, because when you date 265, it's completely different.
Yes.
It's a completely different feeling. And that's why training it's the same as business. Business strategies have lifelines. What you use to get to this salary works, and then it's obsolete. And now if you want to earn the next salary, you have to come up with a brand new strategy. And training is the exact same way, I think.
Yes.
There's a strategy, it's going to get you to this point. It doesn't work anymore. Now you have to find a completely new different strategy that's going to get you to this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think as we all age, so age is going to play a factor. We all get bigger and smaller, which is going to play a factor. Like, I mean, yeah. And then, like you said, and then there's always, I mean, to me, I like powerlifting is chasing my weak link and making it stronger.
That's training.
Like that's what it is. It's you're always trying to figure out what's the weak link. Let me fix that. Then you're going to have another weak link. Okay. Let me find. And I tell people, that's why I want people to learn and understand training and not be told what to do. Because the faster you can figure out and fix your weak link, the faster your gains come.
You said it perfectly. And that should be training for every sport. If you're a tennis player, if you're a kayakist, if you're a rock climber, if you're a power lifter, as long as you're working on your weakest links, like you'll always get better. And it's like if you're an Olympic lifter and you're clean and jerking and everything's going well, and then all of a sudden progress halts. It's like, okay, let's pause. Let's see what the issue is. In the world of soldering, I've been thinking about this analogy a lot recently. When you're learning to use a weapon system, you go through these things called your IA drills, your immediate action drills, and you're all up in standing up in a line, and you have your weapon system, and the instructor will say weapon firing right, weapon stops, and you drop down and you look at the position of the cock and handle. And then they'll say the cock and handle is fully forward, and you carry out the relevant drill. The cock and handle is fully to the rear. You carry out the relevant drill. And I think training is very similar. Training is going well. It's like weapon firing right, weapon firing right, weapon stops. And you have to stop and look at your training and look at the position of the cock and handle and see what the relevant immediate action drill is. And then you go off, you run that through, you fix that weakness, and then you're back up and running again. You're making progress, stop. And it's just having that idea and that creativity, right? Like, it's like type A people are some of the worst people to enter a training realm, because they want to be shown a rigid structure and they want to follow this forever. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. That's going to get you to this point. You're going to run into a problem. Then you're going to have to be creative and problem solve. And then you're going to have to form another training strategy. And just people aren't willing to go through that, I don't think. Like they want to be told what to do all the time.
Yes. And it's just not. And like I tell people, I go, when you're new to this, the window's wide open. And I call it the window for error. The window's wide open. No matter what you do, you're going to get better.
Yes.
But the better and better you get, the smaller this window. If you're trying to get lean at 20% body fat, almost anything you do is going to help. Yes. If you're trying to get down to 6 from 7, it's small. If you bench 225 and now you're at 800 and you want to go to 820, it's a small little window right there now. Yes. And so, like, the more you do it and the better you get, the more you have to start thinking and listening and paying attention to what's actually going on and understanding what's going on. So the rules go away almost. The better you get, the more that rigid structure is going to fade away.
Yeah.
It becomes almost a Zen kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the same with, I think, in almost all disciplines, all areas of, or whatever it is, whether you're studying as a classical musician, as a mathematician, as a martial artist, as a power lifter, it's the same rule. Like, the better you get, the more that you find those answers are actually in here. At the beginning, with the guide is showing you what to do, but as time goes on, you can't look outwards for answers anymore. You got to go inside, and that's what's beautiful about the journey, right? It's an intrinsic experience. You're learning, you're growing as a human being. You learn something in your strength training. You problem solve a particular task, and you go, "Wow, I could use that same mindset in my business or in my relationship issue or whatever it is." And it's just, there's something really magic. Like, I've always been fond of that. Like, I can't. Soldering was a very short time of my life. I started at 16 and I left when I was 22. But I learned so much from that soldering world that I'm able to put into this world, into my training, into my general just life, tough stuff, and it's been great. And exercise does the same, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I look back a lot and I try to talk about a lot because, and especially with my younger lifters, I'm like, this is life lessons here. Like, this is going to make you a better human. It's going to make your life better. Like, there's so many things that connect, and I have so many other hobbies. I love archery. I love shooting. And like, there's all these similarities. I actually, one time, my brother's a horse trainer. And so I've went and watched him train horses before. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, the similarity with him training horses and me training people, like, it's this whole artistry. I mean, it sounds funny. But it's like this whole artistry that you're like helping the person. And it's the same thing with the horse. You're just trying to get the horse to relax and go, listen, here's what we need you to do, man. You be calm. I'm in charge. You calm. We're going to work this out. And I mean, it's like, there's just similarities that are so crazy.
Something about leading a horse to water.
Yeah. Well, that's the hard part, is like, as a coach, and I was actually talking to one of my clients the other day about this. I'm like, the hard part is, I'm going to see you 3, maybe 4 hours a week. So you can come in here and I can be on you and we can have great training sessions. But if you're not eating, if you're not sleeping, if you're not managing your stress, we're not going to make the gains we could make. And like, that's still a hard thing for me to accept as a coach.
But that's why I only see people once a month. What I do is I have a group chat where men get to support and talk with each other, and then every Sunday we have a group Zoom meeting where they can ask questions. And I really like the idea of just like how we all learned ourselves is by spending a lot of alone time. We had great coaches for short periods of time, but especially for things like it's different if you're preparing for a competition, if you're at the world stage and you need to see a coach more frequently to really like hone in and harness certain things. But if you're the average individual who's just trying to be healthy and just trying to be generically fit, like I think community is really, really important. But I've just noticed how dependent people can become. And I would hate to think that someone would become dependent on me. And that's why I kind of like scaring people a little bit. Like, here's the information. Now I can't do anything with you unless you go and make a bunch of mistakes for a month. And then we actually, we have a lot to talk about. And I don't just leave them like, oh, you're in the shit, you're on your own. Send videos to me of your technique and I'll send you videos back. But they're being proactive and they're doing it on their own. It takes effort for someone to make a video of themselves and to send it to me. Well, that's great, because now I know that person is invested. They're willing to do that. That was my way of getting around like a problem that I saw creeping up, which was dependency and just this idea of even certain people like having, especially like places around here, like in like La Jolla and San Diego, like having a coach is almost like having the latest handbag. You know, like it's like what's the word? It's just like an extra thing, Well,
I've thought about that before. People are like, well, my coach is a world record holder. And I'm like, I don't want, like, that's not what you should be proud of. You should be proud of your successes and gains that you're making. Like, I don't need to be a trophy.
That's it. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. Trophy wives want trophy personal trainers. Yeah, that's it.
That's interesting though, because in my career, like I grew up, I mean, I guess I had a football coach in high school, but I never had like a throwing coach until I got into college. And even then I was doing so many other things. I would throw on my own most of the time. And when I got into powerlifting, it was like I didn't really want a coach. So what I was looking for was people I could go to seminars and learn from, and then go back and figure it out myself.
Yep.
And then when I started a team, I'm like, all right, dude, you guys can train with me, but you need to learn. You need to learn this. And then I had a group of guys that I could teach and learn. They would learn, but then we were always, I'm like, this is just because this is what people have done and what we're doing now. I want to take it further. Right. So we were always coming up with new ideas. And like, I mean, after training sessions on the weekend, we would all sit around and we would talk about how everybody's doing. What do we need to change? What's Scott's weak point? How are we going to fix it? And so we kept growing and expanding, but I never really had like that coach. And I think that was actually a better thing. Like you're saying, it forced me to learn and understand more. And it forced me to keep growing and keep looking to keep reaching further in my goals.
It comes back to that mathematics idea of proving it to yourself to be true. Like a million men before you may have come to this understanding. You didn't come to it on your own. Like, you're not the first person, but the fact that you came to it on your own means it's going to stick forever, and that you have respect for it. And that's even the way in which I coach and work with people, is I don't want to give, and people get upset with me, especially on Instagram, when people reach out and they want answers. I'm not going to give you the answer. I want you to figure out the answer by yourself, because it's a good feeling when you figure out a problem. Wow. Okay, I get it. And it gets your confidence a little bit. And now you go looking for more problems to solve, and then you're independent. You can figure it out. And
so that reminds me of, I've told this story so many times. Basically, my first really seminar that I went to and paid attention to was Dave Tate, who owns Elite FTS.
Okay.
And so I ended up, I'm running a program and I'd run into problems and I'd call him up and I'd be like, hey, Dave, man, like this is happening. Like everybody's overtraining at this point. Da, 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 da. And he, just like you said, he would never give me an answer.
Yep.
He would go, well, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, what are you thinking? And I go, man, I think we're overtraining. I think we need more recovery. And he's like, well, I mean, what would you do to fix that? And I'm like, well, I have these couple of options and that I'm thinking about. And he's like, all right, well, why aren't you trying them? So I'm like, fuck you, Dave. God damn it, point taken, I got it. And so he would just kind of like lead me to where I needed to go without ever telling me. And yeah, that was the best thing to build my confidence to go, hey, listen, Chad, you're on the right path, man. You just got to trust yourself.
I think that happens in all group, like whether it's medicine, soldiering, they want that. They want people from all different kinds of backgrounds to come together who look at the world differently and can problem solve differently. And if people have a good system of communication, like that's why community, I think, is really important. Like you do the work on your own, but to unite once a week and have like a debrief. Hey, how was your training? What did you do this week? I've been running into lower back problems. Oh, fuck, so did I. Let's talk about this. Let's try and hash it out. And then you come and go, wow, we got an idea. Let's run with this for a week. And then, oh, shit, now it's even worse. Well, that's all right. Well, at least we can cross that off and say we can put that in the no box. But let's explore these other ideas. And it's that collaborative idea of coming together and problem solving together that's really, really important. And yeah,
that's actually a really good idea. I have a small group of online clients, which I'm hoping to grow at some point, where basically I write programs once a week. I'm like, you have to send me videos. Then I make a video critiquing all their exercises and what they need to work on, and I send them that video back. But it would be really interesting to get those guys together and have their own little powwow where they can talk, and go through that. Because and then part of it is, like, how are you feeling? How do you think you're feeling? If you think you're feeling that way, how was your nutrition? How was your sleep? And just get guys to start talking about all that kind of stuff and come up with stuff on their own, and then have their own community basically to just bounce ideas off of. But you don't really need somebody there every single day.
Nope. Well, you take something like the skateboarding community. That was like big. When did that start? Was that like when Tony Hawk's came in? Was that like the 70s and 80s when they were skating swimming pools? And then it
was like the 80s, yeah, 70s, 80s.
And then they got into the half pipes and all the different. Then they started categorizing skateboarding with like vert ramps and street skating. And then you had your Rodney Mullins turning up. And skateboarding was this very basic idea, but it evolved by just guys coming together, talking with one another, coming up with ideas. Someone would jump and try and skate on a grinder, a pipe, and then they'd sit back and he snaps his board and goes, shit, okay, that didn't work, but let's try this. But just guys coming together and for the sake of it, because they enjoyed it and they were willing to fail. And that's the biggest, that's a huge point. Like so many people are, again, I blame the education system, but just so many people are so afraid to fail. And it's the only way you're going to learn. And just to accept that you're going to fuck up several times and you might injure yourself and you might not get the answer right. And it's okay. Okay. It's totally fine.
I'm working on an article right now that will eventually get published on elitefts.com. And it's basically about, okay, so you just had a competition. What's next? And so many people, I've seen people quit the sport because they have a bad competition. I've seen people get so pissed off, and I've done that. I know a lot of what I talk about. I know because I've messed up and done it and then learned from it. That's where my knowledge comes from fucking up. But I just wanted to write an article and go, listen, if you learn something from that competition and it's going to make you better, then it was a success. Like what is a failure and what is success is actually our perception. My training partners used to laugh because I would come into the gym with a huge grin on my face, and they're like, son of a bitch. They're like, you dreamt up another exercise, didn't you? And I go, oh yeah, and we're doing it today. And so all the things I dreamt up with and tried exercise wise or training program wise, it's probably a small percentage that actually worked out like I wanted. There was a bunch of them that kind of failed, but those failures are what led to the ones that worked. So in my mind, they weren't really failures.
Right. Well, it comes down to that falling in love with the sheer practice of doing it. And that it's actually that Rodney Mullen, again, there's an amazing quote where he talks about if you're doing something for the clapping of the audience, like if that's the reason why you're doing something for medals, for the cheer, then what you do will become very boring very quickly. If you're doing it for the win, if you eventually you're gonna be left with an emptiness inside of you that you're gonna really struggle to fill. You have to do it for the sheer love of it. And then, like you say, if you turn up to a competition, however you're categorized, whether you won, whether you were last place, if you just love, and it's very easy for me to say that because I know what it's like to go into competitions and to win things and to lose things, and no one wants to lose anything. But the idea as such, you know, if you love what you do, then it doesn't matter.
That's where I think for me, it's all about, it's a lesson. It's learning a lesson. And if you look at it, I listened to, I don't know, what is his Master Shao Young He of the Shaolin Europe. And he said something the other day that he's like, we all need to understand that no matter what we do and no matter what we practice, we're going to get older.
Yes.
Like life is going to change. And if you put all your focus on, I'm this physical person, at some point, you're not going to be that physical person. You know, I plan on being in great shape when I'm 80 years old. But I tell you what, if I'm 80 years old, like it's not going to take a whole lot of weight to be impressive because I'm fucking 80 years old. You know, I'm not going to squat 1,200 pounds at 80 years old. It's not going to happen. But that's okay because it's the process.
Right, exactly. It's like if someone identifies themselves as the person who lifts this much weight, or if you're the person who belonged to this soldiering unit or whatever it was, like it's part of your journey, but it's not the all-encompassing you, right? It's not all of you. It's a part of you, and it's amazing to have had that once upon a time in life. If you whatever, you know, deadlifted or squatted an insane weight or whatever, and like you say, you know, are you going to be doing that when you're 80? Probably not, but it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's who you are, and you're the guy that enjoys the journey. You're the guy that tests yourself, and even like you going back, you kind of remind me of my father actually in a way because you're like, oh, I'm gonna start learning math. Like my dad's 75, and he like just got his ham radio license, and like he's always looking for like something that challenge him that's different. And he has a bad knee. Yeah, he can't do the physical stuff he used to do. So he's switching to this other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the cool thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Whatever. If it's in your nature to be challenged, you'll always find something, whether it's a love for Sudoku in a newspaper or something like that, whatever, you know, it's like, if it's adding to your character, then I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
So with training, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see that people are making?
God, I think the biggest mistakes are probably the mistakes that I made myself. You know, no, I think, to be honest, that the biggest mistakes that I see other people making, just not honestly. Let me give this some proper thought a moment. I think just the not understanding that training is an organic and like breathing organism itself that changes, and that people are just looking for an answer. And I think that's in all walks of life. They just want to be told what the answer is to training. Like, this is like, in order to achieve X, you must do Y. But it changes, you know, people think there's a magic exercise. People think there's a training routine that they haven't discovered yet, that no one's told them. Or there's just something, there's some magic pill or trick that's going to save the day, and it just doesn't exist. Still to this day, the vast majority of people, I think this way, and it's. I just wish people would just stop looking on social media for answers, and they would just commit to a practice, test it, collect data on it. Did it work for you? Great, keep doing it. Did it not work? Even better, you know not to do that anymore, or at least to shelve it for the moment. It might come in handy later on, but right now it doesn't serve you. Find something else, and to identify what are your goals. You can't go into the gym and look at everyone in the gym and assume that everyone is training for the same thing, right? You might have a gym that has power lifters, Olympic lifters. There might be golf players in there, which is why they're stood on a Bosu board doing weird and wonderful training, you know. But like, people need to just go inside themselves and center themselves, figure out what it is they want, and then be willing to do the work to get there.
I think you said a couple interesting things. I think goals are a huge one. And I think that's a multiple part where it's like, actually set what you want. Like, don't go, I want to lose weight. Okay, well, how much weight?
Right.
Like, do you care if it's in fat or muscle? Are you trying to get leaner, or are you just trying to get less weight? And then I think one of the biggest problems I see with people making goals is they're very unrealistic.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think if you have an unrealistic goal, you're setting yourself up for failure. If you
Right.
have a reasonable goal, or even have a goal and go, listen, I know this would be my perfect goal if everything goes perfect, but I know it's not all going to go perfect. So this would be my goal.
Right. And even like, even with that, just find this is a huge one actually that I think, find something that you actually enjoy doing, and don't just try to do what the internet tells you should do. Like, weightlifting is a lot of fun for me, but I understand that perhaps other people, that's not, it might not be their bread and butter. They might not like it. They might be better suited because they like to dance. So dance might be the answer to their question, or rock climbing, or kayaking, or tennis, or whatever it is. There's so many sports out there, and you shouldn't just do what the social norm is. Not everybody wants to go to a gym. Not everybody wants to, train in this particular way. And if people just did what they loved, and I think there's enough sports and disciplines, and God forbid, make your own at the end of the day. If there isn't, like, find something that just makes you happy and do it. And then at least then first of all, you're loving the process and you're not going to quit. Right? It brings you happiness. And second of all, you're not necessarily going to be too focused on an end goal. Just do it. Do what you love doing and do it forever.
I think that comes down to, I'm a very mental person, as in, like, I think all the power comes from the mind.
Yep.
And I think you need to, if you're mentally strong enough, you can make yourself do anything.
Yep.
So, and I mean, you do all the studies on placebos, the placebo effect. Like, the human body can do crazy things when we believe it can.
Yep.
So I think with people's mentality, it's very important. So even in terms of weightlifting, I've been in a room with 20 of the strongest people on the planet, and we're all competing, and I look around at everybody and we all train different. So how can I possibly, with a scientific and logical mind, how can I possibly say there's one right way to train?
Mm-hmm.
So when I have a client, especially if it's like if it's a quality of life, like the people go, I want to be healthy for my life. I go, okay, well, how would you like to train?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm one of those guys, I love training heavy and crazy, but if you train heavy and crazy, you need more recovery.
Yep.
And I know people that love training tons of volume. Well, you can train, if you're training with less intensity and doing more volume, you can train more often. So
Yes,
like,
exactly.
I try to kind of go, what is, I really look at if you break it down to the simplest point, you're stimulating growth, you got to recover from the training session, then you got to let your body grow.
Yep.
So I go, what does the person like to train? If I have a person who doesn't really like training super heavy, doing low reps, if I force them to do that, it's probably not going to be the best plan.
Right.
So if I can change the lifting program to one that they enjoy more,
Yep.
I think I'm going to have better results. And I think that's something we need to take into consideration as a coach. And then, of course, with everybody, some things you're not going to like to do. That's not bad and it's not wrong. But I mean, like, when I decided it was time I wasn't going to compete on the world stage and it was time to, drop my body weight and stuff, I'm like, all right, I need to do some more cardio. I hate stationary anything. I can't stand it. Like, cannot stand it. And I'm like, all right, I've done it. I forced myself to do it. I go, but at this point in my life, I don't want to force myself. What else can I do? And so I got into mountain bikes a little bit, and I'm like, man, these derailleurs and all this shit, like, I hate adjusting all this crap. And I'm like, when I was a kid, I got on my BMX bike and I just rode and I was happy as hell. So I found out there was 26-inch bikes. And so at 40, I don't know what I was, 46 or something, I started riding BMX bikes again. And eventually I was riding 20-inch BMX. I got a bunch of 20-inch BMX bikes now. And I go, it is great training and it's fun.
Right.
And so even now, like, my clients, I'll have my clients scheduled for recovery days, and I have so many bikes. I'm like, all right, let's go. Everybody grab a bike.
Yeah.
And they all love it. They all come back smiling and happy. And I'm like, I just kicked their ass for 40 minutes riding.
Amazing.
But they had fun. So it's like, I think you're right, especially with the quality of life people. Like, there's a lot of different options out there. Like find the options that you enjoy and understand that some stuff's going to suck. I'm never going to like broccoli. I'm never going to like eating broccoli, but I eat some broccoli. You know?
Yeah, that I think that stuff's covered by discipline, and then that's a subject of itself. And then regarding training and different training methodologies, I think it comes down to like you're saying that like it comes down to understanding a relationship that exists between stress and recovery. And the higher the stress, the more recovery you need, and vice versa. And then you have to find out if you just look at it that way. I always view stress as like a heart rate monitor. And if I pull the stress up here and I let it drop, how much recovery time do I need before I can pull it up here again? And if it takes that amount of recovery time between those 2 points, is that enough consistency in the week for me to make progress? If I make my training so stressful that I can only train twice a week, or if I make it so less intensity that I can now train 5 times a week, but then did I get the right amount of intensity in the session? So it's this constant balancing act.
Yes.
But if someone is willing to sit back and have fun with it, and that's the same with if you're at the world stage, right? That's what you're going to do with your training. You're looking between how much stress do I need to place on my body, how frequently, and then the recovery, how much do I need before I can do it again? Yes. And it's like someone can sit back and just view it that way, objectively, no personal attachment to it at all. It's just a bit of experimenting, a little bit of data collection. They'll find the training routine that will serve them at that particular moment in time before it loses its sell by date, and then you have to do it all over again.
It's kind of like it's funny you got back into math, because I've kind of explained it like it's just a math equation.
It is just a math equation, 100%.
And like it's like, okay, well, I'm not getting enough recovery. Okay, well then where's my sleep? Can I sleep more? Can I eat more? Like it's just punching everything in and coming out to this stimulus equals recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you got to balance the X's and Y's, and if you can balance the scales, then it works for you at that particular time. Great, run with it. Yeah, it's amazing. Like that thing to me, that's the most attractive part. Is just looking at that, like the macro lens. Like I like looking through the micro lens and looking at all the details with technique and everything as well. I think that's also a great marketing tool that gets used against people, because working and looking on all the technique stuff is great and wonderful. But if you don't have the macro plan assembled, then what you're doing is a waste of time. Maybe not a waste of time, but it might not get you where you need to go, right? You need to look at the roadmap and make sure you're heading in the right direction first. And I think that's where a lot of people...
that's an interesting thing too, because you have the people that focus on one aspect of it. And it's like, but it's not. It's this organic thing that has all these different levels. I mean, it's like an equalizer, especially the old equalizers we had back in the 70s that had like 30 damn knobs. Like everyone does something. And in order to get that music to sound right, you're probably going to have to play with every one of those knobs.
Wow, that's like the greatest analogy. That what you just with that equalizer, like that's exactly it. And that's, again, it's amazing. That's business, that's math, that's fitness, that's relationships. It's there's nozzles that you have to constantly test and adjust.
And that's where it's hard with those people that just want to talk about training.
Right, like you've got.
I'm like, let's not talk about training. Let's talk about your sleep and your nutrition first, and get that lined out. Then let's start talking about what we can actually do in the gym.
Right. Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. And in chat, I think I have about 10% left on my phone.
Okay.
So this is.
We've been going pretty good. We're about an hour and 40 minutes in, I think.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, excellent. No, it's fun. Yeah.
William, good. This was a great conversation. I had a lot of fun. Like I could probably, there's already things in my head. I know I could keep going.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime.
Where can people find you? And if people want to look for you to get into your community or as training or.
Oh, and they could just jump on Instagram, charters_William. Yes, okay. That's right. They can
I'll cut some clips out of this, and I'll try to do like a collaboration thing on Instagram or something too to add that in.
Oh, thank you very much, Chad. Yeah, and thank you. And everyone to do this again, like I'm totally down. This is a lot of fun.
Okay, definitely. Yeah, I think, and why I started following you is I just came across a couple of your clips, and I'm like, oh, I like the way this guy looks at it. And even if we don't necessarily agree on everything, I still respect how you look at it. And I mean, I'm smart enough to know that there is no absolute perfect, you know, like we just talked about, it's looking at everything and it's fitting it in. And it's like, I can go a little bit, not the perfect program, but if it helps more mentally with this person in the end, that's probably the better route. That's my thing.
if I left planet Earth wanting others to think something of me, it would be just that I try to encourage people to think for themselves. That's all. That's all I want. I just want people to be able to look at a situation objectively, to be able to stand back from it and problem solve it to get where they want to go. People usually want to go from where they stood to another point, and it's just equipping them with the skills and how to get there. No investment of emotions or anything like that. Purely objectively, to help people problem solve so they can get where they want to go. That's it. That's my main premise of what I hope to teach. That's all.
And I think you said what I wish all coaches felt. Like, I want to help you get to your goal. It's irrelevant to me what I get out of it. I want to help you get here. And however we can do that is how I want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. We might have to roll our sleeves up and get our hands really dirty, but I'm all in. Let's go.
Awesome, William. Thank you very much for being on. I'll definitely have you on again at some point.
Thank you, Chad.
Just great conversation. I think this is going to be a great podcast.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and now that we've had our first one, there's so many other chapters and things we can go exploring and talking about.
Definitely. Excellent. All right, sir.
Thank you, Chad.
Thanks for listening to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast. For more information, please visit CourageBarbell.com. Until next time.